Something that's been on my mind recently is that there seems to be some serious misunderstandings within the two-way community about the ATF and what it's doing with these recent developments over the last several months. And unfortunately, a lot of the YouTube influencers that cover these types of topics really don't seem to have a strong grasp of the issues or exactly what the ATF is saying. And this brings me to the point of the video. The ATF done did it, y'all. This morning, the ATF published its final version of a new guidance document into the Federal Register. Now, what this video is not going to be, I'm not going to read the document to you. There's plenty of those videos on YouTube, and frankly, I don't think that that's a very good use of anyone's time. Instead, what I'm going to do is provide a objective, purely legal analysis of exactly what the ATF is saying and what it means for the two-way community. What I'm not going to do is inject my personal beliefs, my personal political opinions, or hopefully any of the bullshit that we see flying around with all these recent ATF developments recently. However, I want to be clear. In explaining the ATF's position, I am not necessarily endorsing or supporting that position. Frankly, it's more likely to be the opposite. If you saw my last video where I discussed an earlier leaked version of this document, a lot of the points that I'm going to cover today are going to sound familiar, but I thought it was important to revisit the topic now that we have the final text of the document in hand. All of the laws, regulations, and executive orders that we discussed today, I'm going to link them down in the description below. I encourage you, after you watch this video, please take a look at those sources for yourself and just read them for yourself. So what happened? A couple days ago, Military Arms Channel announced that he had come into possession of a leaked draft of an ATF guidance document. And a copy of this document was then spread around the internet, and it's really caused a firestorm in the two-way community. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, there's been a lot of half-baked analyses by armchair legal experts, and as a licensed attorney in the state of Texas, I want to use this video to dispel some of the bullshit that I've heard in the last couple days. Something that I wanted to mention right off the bat is that there's nothing in this document that suggests the ATF is going to ban stabilizing braces. The ATF likely doesn't even have the authority to ban braces. Rather, what this document says is it puts forth a new set of criteria that the ATF is going to consider when classifying firearms. That said, even though it's really unlikely that stabilizing braces are going to be banned, it's much more likely that these new classification criteria will mean that manufacturers and consumers are not going to be able to use braces in the ways that we have for the last several years. The document is titled Objective Factors for Classifying Weapons with Stabilizing Braces, and this is what's called a guidance document. This document is going to be a little bit different than almost every other document that we've seen released from the ATF. And further, this is a notice document. So nothing in this document is saying things are changing today, right now. That's not the case. Instead, it's saying, hey, here's a plan that we plan to implement in the future. This document is providing notice of those proposed changes. So what are those changes? First, it outlines what the ATF is calling objective design features. And these are new criteria that the ATF is going to consider when classifying firearms. And let's also be clear, the ATF is moving away from using the term pistol. So a lot of people are familiar with the AR pistols. ATF, with this document, has signaled a shift that they're moving away from that. Instead, they're now referring to those types of weapons as stabilizer-equipped firearms. Second, it outlines the ATF's enforcement policies for all current owners of what the ATF is calling stabilizer-equipped firearms prior to December 18th, 2020. Finally, it previews an expedited registration system and a retroactive tax waiver program that the ATF is going to apply or is proposing to apply to stabilizer-equipped firearms. So let's just dive into the document. The first thing that they talk about is what's called objective design features. And these are a new set of criteria that the ATF is going to look at and consider when they're making these firearm classification determinations, okay? And you might be familiar with these. I think they've been floating around for a while. Things like caliber, length of pull, overall length, but they're also adding a couple new ones. This is the weight of the firearm, and that can be the weight of the firearm loaded or unloaded. It could be the ability of the firearm to have a drum magazine. It could be the existence of sights or scope on the firearm. It could be a secondary grip. And a secondary grip that's a different term than a vertical foregrip, which we've seen before. So there could be room for the ATF to broaden what it considers a forward grip, to something like an angled grip. So I would assume that anything that has been marketed with grip in its name likely will fall under the purview of these new objective design features. The ATF also discusses some of the features that they're going to consider for braces themselves. And this includes, what parts are interchangeable on them, what design features do they have that are in common with stocks that are on the market, even what materials is it made of? Is it made of harder materials, which, might not be as useful in a stabilizing brace roll, things like that. Importantly, though, the ATF says that the list of factors that they're laying out in this document are not going to be an exhaustive list. That means that new factors in the future that maybe don't exist right now could be considered by the ATF in future classifications. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly from this guidance document, is that the ATF says, okay, we're not only going to consider these objective design features or the marketing material that companies use when selling these products, we're also going to look at how does the public use this product and how do gun influencers use this product. So I could see an example or an instance where a popular gun reviewer on YouTube uses a stabilizing brace, he shoulders it every time he fires, and then the ATF says, okay, that is something that we're going to take into consideration when classifying this product or this component. Same thing with the public. How the public uses a product is now something that the ATF will take into consideration. And this is a big change from how it has been before. They also go to some lengths to disprove some of the rumors that have been floating around about, how exactly the classification process unfolds. And, it seems like really this section is directed more at QLLC. And so we're not going to take a deep dive into it in this video. The second main point of this document is to lay out the ATF's enforcement policies when it comes to these stabilizer-equipped firearms. And the ATF says, look, we understand that most of the people that purchase these stabilizing braces did so in good faith, and they did so precisely to comply with the law. We understand. But what does that mean for the average member of the 2A community? A lot of people have weapons with these pistol braces on them. Does that mean that the ATF is now going to come bust your door down and kill your dog? Not really. The ATF is trying to say that until these new processes have been finalized, they're really not going to change anything in terms of enforcement. So you really don't have to worry about the ATF breathing down your neck if you have a pistol stabilizing brace. So that describes the ATF stance in the meantime. But where is the ATF trying to go with this document? And that's really what the last section of the document's about. The ATF describes 4 different possible solutions for the future of its enforcement policy for stabilizer-equipped firearms. So the first future process, and the one that's really been gaining the most attention in the last couple days, is what the ATF is calling an expedited registration process. And so this is going to apply to all stabilizer-equipped firearms that are owned prior to December 18th, 2020. Incidental to this new expedited registration process is a program being developed by the Department of Justice. And what this is going to do is for everyone that chooses to register under the new expedited process, they're going to retroactively waive those tax stamp fees. So, it looks like if you have a stabilizer equipped firearm on or before December 18th, 2020, you will be able to undergo this expedited registration process without paying the standard $200 tax stamp that you normally would with a short-barreled rifle or short-barreled shotgun. The document also lays out 3 alternatives, and from the text, it's not clear if these are going to run concurrently or if they are replacements for that expedited registration process. But anyways, the other options are you can remove the stabilizing brace from your firearm and destroy it. You can swap the barrel so that if you have a rifle, the barrel is over 16 inches, or if you have a shotgun, then the barrel is 18 inches or longer. Or you can surrender the firearm to the ATF. So that nails down the key points of the document, but there still exists some potential options. Like, okay, first, the 14-day comment period. A lot of people are saying, hey, isn't this a federal agency engaging in a proposed rulemaking? If that's the case, then we should be entitled to a 90-day public comment period, not a 14-day public comment period, which is what's provided in the guidance document. And yeah, that's correct, but this is not a proposed rulemaking. This document is what's called a guidance document. In 2019, President Trump signed an executive order. What that did was it allowed federal agencies to cut through some of the regulatory red tape, and instead of engaging in proposed rulemaking, which is a much more slow process, takes much more time, instead what they can do is issue these guidance documents, which these guidance documents actually don't require any public comment period at all. With that said, the ATF says, look, we understand that people are super interested in stabilizing braces, and because of that, we're going to open up a 14-day comment period so that we can hear what the public and what industry has to say about these proposed changes. Another issue that I've seen brought up is the question of a tax waiver. So does the ATF have the authority to waive taxes? Because, if they can waive the taxes, couldn't they also increase the tax, or couldn't they institute an annual registration tax? And that's an interesting question, but really it doesn't seem that likely because the ATF made it very clear in the document that they're partnering specifically with the Attorney General himself, maybe herself, and it looks like it will be the Attorney General who's going to waive those retroactive taxes. The last potential issue that's really been getting a lot of attention is this disclaimer language that can be found right before the public comment section. And basically it's saying nothing in this document can be relied upon to create any rights or anything like that. So it calls into question, okay, is this document just a suggestion? Do we actually have to follow this document at all? And because they're saying you can't rely on this thing. That is not the case. This document definitely is binding. I mean, at least the finalized proposals that it's giving notice to definitely, absolutely will be binding. All they're saying is you can't use this document in case we do enforce the laws against you. You can't use this document in court and say, well, they said they weren't going to enforce in the meantime. And so really the ATF is just covering their bases, but they also made it very clear, barring any catastrophic changes, they really don't plan on changing their enforcement policies until these new rules or new interpretations have been finalized. There was a ton of information in this guidance document. Even so, there are still a lot of questions that have been left unanswered. And I want to go through a couple of them. I think the most important one is which lower receivers are going to qualify for this expedited registration process. Is it only those receivers that were sold as pistols, or can anyone, if you bought a strip lower and then put your stabilizing brace on it, will that lower also qualify for this expedited tax-free registration? We don't know. Another question is, what about the people that have registered SBRs and short barrel shotguns in the last few months? Are they going to, get a refund for the taxes that they've paid, even though this change was coming fairly quickly? And, another question, where do AOWs, these any other weapons, where do they fit into this process? That's not even mentioned at all in this notice guidance document. And that's why it's so important for members of the 2A community and members of the industry to use this 14-day public comment period to submit those questions to the ATF and let them know, here's what we're thinking. The last couple pages of the document outline the public comment period and, what are the comment procedures. And, surprisingly, it's a little nitpicky, and there are some serious privacy implications if you don't follow, this document to the letter. So I am going to produce a different video, which I'm going to submit or provide some form comment letters that you can fill out, which will allow you to be sure that your comment will be received and will be included on the Federal Register. I hope this video has helped clear up any questions or concerns that you might have had or might have seen floating around the 2A community in the last couple of days. If you have any questions or comments, put it in the comments below. I promise I'm going to get back to them as soon as I can. In the meantime, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, I am going to be making videos as new developments arise with the ATF. If you want to see those as soon as I post them, please hit the bell button. I'm sure we are in for some very interesting next few months, so stay tuned and I will keep you updated with the best legal analysis I can without any of the bullshit. Stay tuned, stay armed, and I'll see y'all later.